Who are you? Seriously, think about it. Who are you really? These are not questions that Jesus asks in today's gospel, and yet they are implied throughout. What Jesus does ask his disciples is this: who do people say that I am? The disciples give various answers. At one point, Jesus changes the question. But who do you say that I am? He asks. This time it is Peter who gives the answer. You are the Messiah, he says. And Jesus sternly orders his disciples to say nothing about this to anyone. At that point, though, Jesus begins to tell them what is going to happen to him, how he's going to be betrayed, suffer, and be killed. Shocked to hear what Jesus has ahead of him, the disciples challenge him. And it is here that Jesus turns it around. It is as if he asks them, what about you? Who do people say that you are? And who do you say that you are? Who are you really? Jesus doesn't ask them this in so many words. Instead, he says that in effect, you might not like what I'm going to do, but if you are going to follow me, you must follow my example. But to do this, you must become who you truly are. Who you truly are. But to do that, you must die to who you pretend to be, who you believe yourself to be. For, he says, those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Given the fact that Jesus is talking about giving up your life, this appears to be a very hard teaching. It seems so contradictory. Become who you are by dying? How can this be? You know, a while ago, I read a book by the Franciscan writer Richard Rohr that has really stayed with me. The book is called Falling Upward. Falling Upward. Interesting title. Falling Upward. The subtitle is A Spirituality for the Two Halves of Life. I highly recommend it. I find that Richard Rohr's outlook gives a very helpful perspective to this problem of identity and Jesus' claim that in order to grasp that identity, you must in some sense die. The thing is, Richard Rohr sees two phases of human identity. One phase corresponds roughly to the first half of life, the other to the second half. What is most important during the first half of life is the development of the ego. This is a necessary part of human growth. It is when we claim our identity, when we set ourselves apart from others, when we develop our skills and talents and work to find our place in the world. This is a time of self-achievement, of accomplishment, of forming opinions that are all our own, of building a family, and learning to know who we are in relation to all others. A man or woman who never learns to distinguish themselves in this way has a harder time in life. All this is vital. It is necessary. And yet, in the end, it is an illusion. Following Thomas Merton, Richard Rohr calls this ego, which we all carefully develop over so many years, not the self, but the false self. That's because all those things we work so hard to achieve during the first half of life, the triumphs, the accomplishments, the success, the opinions, the self-image, all those things which we believe make us unique and distinguish us from others, they don't last. They all let us down in the end. That's because none of them reflect who we truly are. Not really. They are just a facade. They are the mask we create to make ourselves feel good and to earn the world's respect. When Jesus says that we must lose our life in order to save it, this is the part I believe he means. The false part, the life that is not really the one we are here on earth to live. In the end, in order to truly serve God, our false self must die. We must let it go. We must drop it and all that the ego clings to and put in its place our true self, the self that is not our ego, but our soul. For most of us, though, this is something that can only begin during the second half of life, the time that begins around middle age, when our families have grown and our careers are winding down. This is as it should be because we needed that ego in the life's first half. The search for our soul is very different from the search for the ego, however. It is, in fact, the exact opposite. The ego, the false self, is formed of all that we are attached to. The soul, the true self, is discovered through all the ways that we are able to let go of that. It is found in the realization that we are not our body, that we are not our thoughts, that we are not our likes, we are not our dislikes either. We are not our achievements. We are certainly not our failures. We are not what we love in ourselves. We are not what we hate in ourselves. We are none of those things. We can let them all go. In fact, we have to let them go. These are what form the false self. So to use Jesus's language, we must die to them. Or as our Muslim friends say, we must die before we die. We must die to the ego, die to the false self. Not only that, we must die to everything that feeds it, everything that we cling to as uniquely our own, our wealth, our status, our self-image, even our fears. Everything that we feel sets us apart. We must let it all go until nothing remains. Nothing but trust. Pure trust. Trust in that immensely mysterious something more. Trust in that force vastly beyond us. A power immensely greater and infinitely more loving than anything we can know or imagine. In other words, trust in God. Find this trust and you have found your true self. Find this trust and you've touched your soul. The result of this, the result of all this letting go, of all this dying to self, the result, in other words, of finding your soul, your true self, is not what you might expect. It is not emptiness. It is not loss, nor is it depression, nor anything else along those lines. It's just the opposite. The result of finding your true self is peace, a deep, abiding peace, a peace beyond understanding. It's a total peace joined with fulfillment, with contentment, with serenity, with purpose. It's a peace rich with meaning. It's an extraordinary feeling, a truly awesome feeling, this complete trust in God. We can wait and discover our true self at any time. But why put off such peace, such joy? All it requires is letting go of all the things we think we want, all the things we think we have to be, and allowing ourselves to simply trust, to trust in God and let his will be done. As Jesus assures us, we don't lose our life by giving all this up. We save it. Amen.